Hello YouTube, this is Redhead Takes back with another video. Today we will be discussing my predictions for the second week of the National Football League 2022 season. After the madness that was week 1, hopefully week 2 will be a little more predictable, especially for my picks record. Last week wasn't that great. I think I only got half right. But anyway, hope you enjoy the video. As always, remember to subscribe. Hit the like button, comment, share it around, and if you like my stuff, give it a like button. Make sure you hit the bell notification twice, and let's get on with the video. So the first game of the week, we have Kansas City versus the LA Chargers. Both teams last week won. Some won bigger than others, like Kansas City, just destroying Arizona. LA had the game pretty well in hand for the most part versus the Raiders. Struggled a little bit towards the end. The offense started to struggle a little bit, especially after Keenan Allen went out with injury. Hopefully for their sake he's able to play this week, but judging by them playing on Thursday, probably won't be able to rebound in time to play, so that'll be a loss for the Chargers. I expect the Chiefs to win. I want to say that the Chargers will win, but I'm just not sure. I just think the Chiefs have a little bit more in this game, just because Keenan Allen is injured. If LA was to win this week, Eckler would have to be much more efficient, which could be possible this week. He didn't look that great to start the season. And I don't expect Mahomes to have this game they did last week this week. Hopefully for the Chargers, Derwin James plays. No, not Derwin James. J.C. Jackson plays. Hopefully he plays. Unsure yet. But I don't expect Keenan Allen to play, honestly. And I think the Chiefs will win. But it could be a very close game. And honestly, it could go either way. Next we have Cleveland versus the Jets. Well, the Jets didn't play that great last week, but their defense showed that they have a future. Flacco was not that great, to be honest, and they had a tough task against the Ravens. Cleveland wins. That rushing attack looks fierce. Offensive line looks good as always. I expect the Browns to win this game and surprisingly be off to a 2-0 start. They'll lose eventually, but just because it's against the Jets, I think the Browns have enough. And also, even at quarterback, I think Brissett still has a little bit left than Joe Flacco. Should be interesting to see the running game with the Jets, how that shakes up between Breece Hall and Michael Carter. Hopefully Breece Hall is able to get a little bit more this time. He wasn't very efficient last game, and he had that fumble. So who knows? Michael Carter is probably still in the good graces of the coaching staff. And the Browns will probably be another great running day for them. Maybe not as well. If the Jets can show up, might be a little different, but I think the Browns win by a comfortable margin, maybe 7 to 10 points. Could be an interesting game though. Next game we have Washington versus Detroit. The Lions almost won last week, almost coming back from 17 in the fourth. Just fell a little short. The Commies, Wentz looked pretty great last week. They were playing Jacksonville, so we'll see how they do against the Lions. Probably should put up similar numbers. The running game wasn't the greatest for the Commies last week. Hopefully that'll improve, but Jahan Dotson looks like a great slot wide receiver and just wide receiver in general. I look to him to continue to do well. Hopefully McLaurin can get in on a little more of the action. I think the Lions offense will continue to get better. If last week was any indication, their offense should be pretty good this year. The running attack was pretty good. DeAndre Swift finally looks to be recovered from any injuries he's had over the last couple of years. He looked great. Unfortunately for wrong game. The Lions should be pretty good. I think the Lions win. It should be a decent game though. I think the Lions, after winning last week, will pull through this week because the Commies last week, while they looked great at times, the Jaguars shit the bed kinda, so it prevented them from really winning when they had the ball in their hands, ready to win the game. Next we have Tampa Bay versus New Orleans. Going to be a good game. Great battle between defenses. New Orleans, hopefully they play better than they did last week, because a comeback like last week will not happen against this Tampa Bay defense. It sounds like Chris Godwin for the Bucs is not as injured as he his first thought, but probably doesn't play this week. And Marcus Lattimore seems to always do really well against Mike Evans, so that might be an issue for the Bucs. It should be a really interesting game. I think Tampa Bay wins, but if the Saints win at home, it would not be surprising at all. Jameis Winston's just going to have to be a little bit more consistent if they really want to pull through in this game against that great Tampa Bay defense. Tampa Bay wins, but it's going to be close. Next, Carolina and the Giants. Giants with the surprise win last week. Carolina failing to win, just gave up a little bit too much time to the Browns. Apparently there was a penalty that should have been called against the Browns last week. I didn't read into it, but apparently the Carolina Panthers got screwed. Baker Mayfield looked pretty good last week at times. Still more to improve on. Hopefully McCaffrey can get going a little more, although the Giants did hold Derrick Henry to 82 yards last week, so maybe that's a sign of things to come. Carolina, I think, pulls through. I think the Giants had their 1 week. If they win and go up 2-0, that would be one of the biggest surprises of the year. I think Carolina just has a little bit more. Hopefully DJ Moore can get in a little more in the action. And I like Carolina to win decently. Touchdown. Maybe 10 points. But Carolina could win, but Giants could surprise again. New England versus Pittsburgh. This is kind of a hard game to project just because Pittsburgh's probably going to be without TJ Watt. And I don't know if Najee Harris will play or not. Don't know how injured he is. It sounds like it's not as bad as originally thought. The Patriots, who knows what's happening with Mac Jones and his back injury. Hopefully he's able to play. I'm sure he will. And this is just going to be a different game than past years for New England versus Pittsburgh. Both the legends of the game are gone. No more Roethlisberger versus Brady. It's now Mitch Trubisky versus probably Mac Jones. But I think Steelers have a little bit more. It's in Pittsburgh, so I think they get a boost there. So Pittsburgh being 2-0 is kind of surprising, but I think they win. New England's just got a mess on that offensive line and just offense in general. That'll have to get much better if they want to have any chance to win, because that Pittsburgh defense looked pretty great. Even when TJ Watt left, that defense still looked great. So I think Pittsburgh wins. And next we have Indianapolis versus Jacksonville. The Colts finding every way to mess things up again, having to settle for the tie. Jacksonville had great times last week, but failed. ETN's going to have to be a lot better. He's going to find himself riding the bench, because last week for him was just terrible. And for any fantasy owners, I'm sorry, that was just bad. I think Indy wins. I think their offense is just going to be overpowering for Jacksonville, to be honest. They'll have to show up sooner than last week, I think. I think Jacksonville's defense is somewhat improved from last year. It remains to be seen how much better Jacksonville can get, because Trevor Lawrence looked great at times, had some really bad throws, but I think Indianapolis wins this game pretty easily, maybe a touchdown or two. But after last year, I guess you can't. After the Clown World disaster, can't be surprised if the Colts lose. Next we have Miami-Baltimore. Good looking game. Both great looking offenses and some good defenses. This is going to be a really interesting game. Definitely one to watch. Lamar Jackson showed that he can play on a prove yourself deal, turning down that contract. Miami's going to have to get a little better. Had some bright spots last week, had some good throws, but Tua was still a little inaccurate at times, missing Tyreek Hill a couple times, because Tyreek Hill could have had so much more, but he didn't. Baltimore, I think, wins. I think Baltimore is charging for definitely winning the division, or at least until Cincinnati can play more consistently. Baltimore wins. It's going to be really close, probably a field goal, maybe 6 points, but I think it's going to be a really great game, and Baltimore will pull through. Hopefully J.K. Dobbins can play. I don't know if he will or not, but that offense will look even better when they have a consistent and really great running back behind that offensive line. Next we have Atlanta versus the Rams. Both teams losing, one in the most embarrassing fashion possible, and the Rams were kind of embarrassed too. For a Super Bowl team to come out like that, they did not perform well, and I think this will be a tune-up game for the Rams. Last week, Atlanta showed up because it's their rivalry game at home against the Saints, but the Saints pulled through, and I think the Rams win pretty convincingly. Kupp should have a field day. Allen Robinson should get more on the action. Hopefully their running game will improve, and that defense will eat that offensive line alive. So I think the Rams win pretty comfortably. Sorry, Atlanta. You had your chance last year to make a statement, but you failed, and now you're going to get pounded this week. Seattle versus San Francisco. Seattle with the surprising win. San Francisco with kind of a surprising loss. Now that Elijah Mitchell is out 2 months, that's going to be difficult for their running game to recover. Yeah, they still have Jeff Wilson. I just have my doubts on how consistent he can be. Seattle winning in surprising fashion last night because of terrible coaching by the Broncos at the end. But Geno Smith looked pretty good. Looked pretty comfortable in the pocket, getting his throws off, not having a lot of incompletions. DK Metcalf is definitely his favorite target, and some of his tight ends on the intermediary routes. But I think San Francisco will rebound. That defense should be better. I think at home, San Francisco is a favorite, but it could be anybody's game, especially after Seattle played last night. Would not be surprised if Seattle wins, but I think San Francisco wins in a decent amount. Next we have Cincinnati versus Dallas. Dallas is going to struggle for the next couple weeks unless they can find a decent quarterback. Who knows what Cooper Rush is and what he isn't. Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow will look to get back on track after a up and downs game last week. Hopefully T. Higgins can play. He's still in concussion protocols as far as I know, so who knows if he'll play. But Tyler Boyd is still there. Hopefully Mixon will do better at running this game. I think he will. And I don't think Dallas really has much of a chance in this game, honestly. If Dallas wins and Cincinnati starts at 0-2, that would be very surprising. But I don't think Cincinnati will start at 0-2. I think they'll right the ship and they'll win pretty comfortably in this game, simply because I know there's some bright spots on Dallas defense, at least with Micah Parsons, but I think just that offense overall is just going to be too much to handle for the Dallas defense, because their offense is going to struggle a lot. Cincinnati by a decent amount. Houston versus Denver. I think Denver rights the ship, and they have a coming out party. Maybe not a coming out party, because Houston showed that they can play pretty well against decent competition. Davis Mills, I still think, is a very underrated quarterback. He'll still have his ups and downs games, but I think overall Davis Mills is a great quarterback, or at least a good one that could be great. With a little more reps and more playing time, he can get even better. Hopefully Dameon Pierce runs better for Houston. Last game was not great for him. Houston has a decent chance to win, but I think Denver and Mile High Denver's going to come out swinging after the loss they had last night. I think Denver comes out and wins big. But it's anybody's game, I suppose, in the NFL. A lot of parity after last week. Can't say anybody's going to blow anybody out anymore. Well, I guess except the Rams versus the Falcons, because the Falcons are terrible and dreadful. But, yeah, Denver in a decent amount. Arizona versus Las Vegas. I think the Raiders played well at times last week. Devontae looks good as always. Just still can't be covered by anybody. And Arizona's going to struggle with Devontae this week for sure. I think Arizona will have better offense this week because the Raiders' defense leaves a little bit to be desired. Arizona should have a good chance to win, but I think Las Vegas pulls it out just because they just have a little more offensive firepower with Devontae alone. The Raiders' running backs didn't look great last week. Josh Jacobs didn't look very good, and the offensive line is still not great. But I think Las Vegas wins, get back on track, and Arizona starts out 0-2, leaving dark future for this season. Honestly, I think Kingsbury gets fired at the end of the year, and Arizona's going to have to go coach shopping again. And we have the Sunday night game, Chicago versus Green Bay. I definitely like the Packers to get back on track. Last week was their fluke coming out party where they just don't perform at all. There's a possibility that Quay Walker plays this week. Chris Barnes will probably be out for the next month or so, but he's not a season-ending injury. Keyshawn Nix, hopefully he can play, but who knows? I don't know how bad his injury is. I think Green Bay will get back on track because as good as Chicago played at times last week, they were really up and down the whole game. They just got a good run going once Elijah Mitchell went out for the 49ers. I think the Packers win pretty handily. It's probably going to be close right off the bat just because that's how all Bears and Packer games start. But I think Packers will get back to only 2 games away from being best team, most winningest team of all time in NFL history. And I think they win with a combination of Dillon and Aaron Jones, and Rodgers will actually throw a touchdown in this game. Packers by 10 points, maybe 2 touchdowns. We'll see. Next, we have Tennessee versus Buffalo. I think Buffalo will come out just like they did last week and just throw the ball all over Tennessee. Tennessee has a decent secondary still, but I think they're just kind of just take apart Tennessee. I think Tennessee starts out 0-2. I mean, that offensive line, it looks a lot weaker than it did last year. Derrick Henry did not play well last week, he got 82 yards, but he's kind of pushed around a little bit at times last week. And Tannehill had some touchdowns, but overall didn't look great through most of the game. I mean, they lost to the Giants. That was the surprise of the week. Buffalo, their defense is just going to get better as they get closer to Trey White coming back. I mean, that defense took apart of that Rams defense like nobody's business. And I don't think Buffalo has as many turnovers as they did last week. So I think Buffalo wins by a decent margin. And honestly, I'd be surprised if I wouldn't be surprised if Tennessee pulled it out, but I doubt it. I think their team is just a lot weaker than we thought going into the season, to be honest. So Buffalo wins. And last but not least, we have the second Monday night game. I can't believe there's 2 Monday night games next week, but it's Minnesota versus Philadelphia. I think Minnesota should play it above what they normally will be. Yes, their offense will be good this year with Justin Jefferson, Kirk Cousins, and Adam Thielen and Dalvin Cook. But I think that was more so just the Packers just coming out not ready to play. Again, that's a metaphor for that happening. And Philly came out looking great on offense, not so much on defense, and unfortunately for them, Derek Barnett is out for the rest of the year with the torn ACL, so that's going to hurt their pass rush a decent amount. I think the Philly Eagles offense continues to play well. I think last week with the A.J. Brown is only a sign of things to come. Jalen Hurts still needs to get better at throwing a ball. He still has some errant throws because that game could have been a lot worse. They allowed the Lions to get back into the game, narrowly lost. But I think Philly continues playing how they did last week, and they beat the Vikings. Because I think that Vikings defense is not as good as people make it out to be. Ed Donatel is a decent coach, but let's be honest, he hasn't been coaching for a long time. His defense with the Packers in the 90s hasn't changed since then. His defense still has its moments, but I think in the long run, it will not win out most days. But it should be a good game. But I like the Philly Eagles to win and show up the Vikings that they're not as good as people thought they are from week 1. And that's the video. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, subscribe, hit the like button if you like my content, hit the bell notification twice to get all my videos. And as always, and also a reminder, I had a live stream out yesterday talking about the games from last week. If you want to watch me go into the games in greater detail, reminder, I always have a live stream every week recounting every game of the week on probably Monday around 3 o'clock, 2 hours or 1 to 2 hours. So check out for those in the future. Or the one I put out, I had a lot of shorts the last couple of days and some decent videos, so check those out at your leisure. Otherwise, have a great day and God bless.